Hello, everybody, and welcome to Office Hours, where we answer your digital technology, internet, and media-related production questions every single day. Cindy Drozda from Erie, Colorado is our reader today. Cindy, what's our first question?
First one is from Brody Brazil in Danville, California. Repeat problem happening. While live streaming on an ATEM Extreme ISO, my HD recording stops somewhere after 1 hour. LED goes yellow and is locked from recording again until power cycle. Drive isn't full, just stops recording. What is happening here?
Alex Lindsay's going to help you out this morning. Alex?
So the two things that I would look at there is, number one is, what is your drive? What is the style of drive that you have? And are you more than 40% into that drive when it fails? The other thing I would do is pick the drive up and see how warm it is. So with SSDs, we're finding that if a drive it gets too hot, it slows down. So it will regulate itself and slow down, and then that will cause the ATEM to stop recording. We find this to be in a lot of drives when they have continuous records that go over 40% of the drive, we're finding that they stop recording. So unless you're buying production level drives, if these are Samsung T7s and even sometimes T5s, you have to be very careful that they don't change speeds on continuous record. That's what seems to be causing some of these issues.
Cindy, you had some thoughts?
Probably you thought about this already, but something that has bitten me before on this is if I delete files off of a drive but don't empty the trash, those files stay there and clog up the drive, making it think it's fuller than it really is. So you might check that.
And Alexander.
Those are all good things to look into. Also, double check, and I will always say this, but double check the Blackmagic recommended or supported list of drives. They qualify certain list of drives as compatible. Anything that is not on that list is at your own peril, so just be aware of that. I mean, I've used unsupported drives before that have worked fine. I've also used some that are not on that list that just stopped working for no good reason after the last firmware update. So maybe they're cracking down on that. So I would stick to that drive list, because if you're also going to run into issues, if you contact Blackmagic support, first thing they're going to tell you is, did you use a drive on that list? So just be careful.
Brody, we hope those suggestions help you out. Next question.
Next one is from me. What are some ways that I can engage and promote community on my Discord server?
Ooh, Liberty White's going to help you out here. Liberty?
Yeah, so Cindy, just a quick question. When you say promote community, like you're looking for more engagement, you are looking, describe what community means to you.
I am looking for more engagement from an audience, more participation, for them to come in and comment and start conversations, continue conversations. Right now, what I get is people come in there and I will greet them and what can I do with you today, and nothing.
So I would say I would almost wipe the slate clean and do discovery. Ask whether it be using a poll option and find out what people are looking for, because I always say we have our plans and we think, oh, this is what they want, versus getting them to engage. For example, we have our Women in AI Week, Future Week coming up next week. And a couple weeks ago, I asked a question polling the community. Do you want workshops on AI agents? Do you want workshops on automation? And that is probably my most engaged piece of content polling wise, because now we know we have multiple AI agent workshops. So for you, by polling, seeing what they want, if you look on LinkedIn, Women X AI, they do a phenomenal job with community. So they have mapping out your content as well. So let's say, for example, you have, just like office hours, we have specific days so people with specific interests come together and they know the business and AI day, the audio day, etc. So if you can do some discovery, but then also pair that with strategic programming so they know, and it's going to take time. I always say give it a good 90 days to even 6 months to see and test. So hopefully some of that will help you through.
Alex, you had some thoughts?
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the things to do is think about group projects. Like, let's all work on something together as well. Like let's all, like, one of the things that because we do so many things together here in office hours, there's a lot of people going in and out of Discord, in and out of our area often, which I think has other things happening, so because there's lots of people coming in to look at their, the different teams and so on and so forth. But that I think creates a lot more movement within the group. But when in the old Pixel Core days with vBulletin, a lot of times we were doing group projects or group challenges. Like, let's all make something. Let's all do this thing over the weekend, over the next week or two, and ask questions or show what we did. Express it. I'm not sure if your community is all based around turning. Is it all a turning community? So
yes,
I think that the idea is everyone get a block. Everyone get a block that's the same size, and let's see what you do with it. That kind of thing. Like challenge everybody because people want to show off. They want to play along. Oftentimes, and the idea is show off what you did. Bring questions. Bring things that you found, or bring special techniques that you used or tools. That might be something that, what I would do is probably reach out to a handful of people that well to see if they'll play along. I think sometimes it's the issue with a street performer that you don't pay attention to them until there's 3 or 4 people watching, and then so getting a couple people to do it that are always going to do those challenges will start to have people see what those things look like. And of course, if you and a couple other people put out something really great, people might want to play along.
I'm going to riff on what Alex just said, because for me, I think the number one thing that keeps people from engaging is fear, particularly in anything that's kind of broadcast out into the world. Nobody wants to look like an idiot in front of the world. That's how they kind of feel. And I've seen so many people who are really bright and can really explain things well just collapse inside of themselves because of that fear. So I do a variation on what Alex is talking about. I'd seed your first questioners. I make sure that somebody who taps in does not seem super slick and super in command of everything, so they can help the person on the other side of that camera kind of come, and they can make them feel okay. Yes, that's a basic question, but I was there too, and here's how I fixed that. You'll learn to be kinder and more receptive, and if you do that a few times, then suddenly people feel like, okay, if I go on there, I'm not going to be embarrassed. I'm going to be treated well, and that will help those first-timers break through that glass wall of not wanting to appear. And that's been my experience, at least. Let's go on to the next question.
Next one is from Paul Johnson in the United Kingdom, coming into us through the QR code. I have a QuMax antenna for my RUX50 4G router and would like to know whether setting this up at ground level with no direct line of sight to a cell tower would produce any useful benefits. Or does a solution need to be found to raise this up 10 megs?
You're going to get a lot of help here. Jason Bache is going to start us off. Jason?
Okay, well, I'm going to go with it depends. So this lies in power or gain of an antenna. The gain of an antenna is a measure of how well it focuses energy and, the signal's energy in any particular direction. A high gain antenna is more efficient at receiving and transmitting signals, but it doesn't compensate for poor line of sight. Even a high gain antenna placed at ground level, you'll still struggle in dense areas with a lot of stuff in the way. And there isn't a direct mathematical formula between these two. I think in your case, it is guess and check.
Alex?
Yeah, Mickey says that the LTE antenna in this enclosure is unidirectional. It must be aimed directly at the tower to work efficiently. This may require it to be mounted up high. Otherwise, an omni antenna might be more effective if you're not able to raise it. James Halding said, keep the RF cable as short as you can minimize signal degradation. I'll also say that for 4G, I think that can make sense. 5G, by the way, there's a version of that. I think that's 5G. It's really hard to make 5G work if you're not in a really dense area because it doesn't travel very far well. So for these directional ones, though, you definitely need to point towards it. I would definitely look for a way to raise it. You asked about 10 meters. Yeah, 10 meters would make a lot of sense. But you got to know where that antenna is that you're trying to target.
Courtney?
Yeah, and it also kind of depends, everything everyone else has said, because the 5G doesn't penetrate very well, doesn't go through buildings. It's pretty much line of sight. And they have to have a lot more cells. But it depends on they've kind of changed the meaning of 5G in a number of, there's millimeter wave, which was what 5G was originally, which is the super high frequency wave that does not penetrate anything very well, like even clouds and trees is not too great with. So you need line of sight.
Air
Air.
has trouble with it. 5G has trouble with
Too much air
No
between.
air.
Yeah, I hear it works. It works super well on the moon. Like the 5G travels long way through the moon.
But so if you can get that up, that antenna up on a mast, and if you're looking for ways to raise it up, go to your look for ham radio masts, because hams know about all this stuff, and they have these kind of telescoping masts where you can stick it up and reorient it from the base without having to climb up something. And this could hold one of those smaller 5G antennas, especially if you get there are some of the 5G antennas that are made that have multiple receivers. They're designed for multipath cancellation, and they have an amplifier in the base of them. They're designed for mobile use with like 4 or 5 antennas, little short stubby antennas that come off of the mobile piece, and you stick it out there and raise it up. And it's amplified, so it'll go down a longer cable easier. But even if you have one of those, then that might work on a mast. But if you can get it up, and that's for omnidirectional. And as Alex said, if it's a directional antenna, you got to get a map and plot exactly where that transmitter is, raise it up, and make sure it's pointed in the right direction.
Paul, thanks for the question. Next question.
From Karen Otis in Melbourne, Australia. My Zoom Workplace paid web recording was 2560 by 1440. It is usually 1920 by 1080. Is this a new thing?
Alex?
My question is, did you ever do a screen share during that recording? So most likely what happens is, your entire recording will be the resolution that your screen share was. So if you have a 4K screen share, or this looks like a resolution for a monitor. So 2560 by 1440 is a very traditional resolution for a monitor, which means that you did that at some point in time. You showed a screen, and it will do that. The entire canvas from then on will be it. It does not make it better. People got into this habit during COVID of 4K or 1440 or do something else, and it'll force it, but it's still going to be 1080 video, just stretched up badly by Zoom. So I would not recommend trying to. It was used as a cheat. Doesn't work. It doesn't make it significantly better, or any better than what you had there. So, but my guess is you had a some sort of screen share there, and that's what caused that problem.
And Liberty.
I was just going to say, I was like, wait a second, Alex.
Yeah.
So you mean what I should be doing? So, but how does that impact the final product of what Karen's Zoom?
Everything's going to be, it takes the 1080p signal. If you have a 1080p account, or a 720p signal, if you have a 720p account, it just scales it up to 2560 by 1440. But it's not asking your computer for more data, which means it's not getting more data. It's just scaling it up, and so that's that's what's doing there. And it's one of the reasons that a lot of us like to present, especially in a webinar. A lot of us like to present to our video screen, like what we do with a switcher, because it enforces a 1920 by 1080 signal all the time. So if all the presenters use switchers instead of screen shares, it makes sure that you don't, because this is not bad, 2560 by 1440, but if someone gave you a 4:3 screen, and it will scale it to something that'll fit that 4:3 screen, it'll be wonky, I think is the technical term for it. So so I think that, typically if you have a 1080p screen and you have, someone's able to manage high spotlighting folks or anything else, a 1080p screen with people with switchers is the best solution.
Thank you for all of your questions and answers. By the way, don't forget, this entire show is run by your questions. You can ask questions, chat about them, vote on them, do all those things in our Mukana system. You go to officehours.global/join. We'll send you an email within a day or so. And once we've done that, you can get into the system, and then you can not only ask questions in the system, but you can vote on them, which is very powerful, because the ones with the most votes we get to sooner and spend more time on. You can also join the live community that kind of assembles on Discord. In fact, I'm looking at some of the chat right now. And back when we were talking about that 6K recording, or back when we were talking about doubling, there were a lot of comments about, so if you're okay with pixel doubling, you can do that if you want to not manage your resolution well. More of the same pictures, yeah, technically, more of the same pixels, yeah, technically that's a 6K recording, but it doesn't have the resolution extra. So there's a lot of chat that happens in our commentary every day. Let's go on to our next question.
This one's from Alex Lindsay in Novato, California, and on the panel today. I went to a concert and shot some photos.
Ooh, we love show and tell. Alex, show us our picture, your picture.
I left the house. Anyway, so proud of myself. So anyway, so my daughter and I went to see a band called Flip Turn, and Flip Turn's out of Florida, and they're pretty good. They're really good. And so anyway, but I thought it'd be fun to break down some stuff.
What did you shoot?
The way I view
Tell
it.
us.
I just shot with them. I didn't shoot anything. I went. These are just pictures from my phone.
So your phone,
yeah. So anyway, so this is the Fox. They're very ornate. This is you really feel like you're going back in time. It's I think it was built in 1928, and so it is. That's the exterior there. Let me get my computer control.
Snow Patrol's coming on the 24th. I'd say that show.
Very ornate on the inside, so it just feels very good. It's really interesting. There's these multiple levels, which you'll see more. Now I'm looking at this through a shooter's perspective. I go to these shows, obviously to hang out with my daughter and to see good bands, but I'm also scoping new spaces all the time. Like, what do I know about this space? So I have pictures. So if someone says, hey, I want to shoot at the Fox Theater, I have a pretty good sense of what I'm going to do here. So very ornate. This is your camera paths would probably be in these squares over here. They're not going to block anything. So, if I'm looking at this, like if I built cameras slightly higher than the stage over on these corners, no one's going to complain because it's not blocking. There's no occlusion. So that's kind of what I'm looking at there. I'm looking at basically here. So this is where you can see these multiple levels that are here, which I find very interesting. What it does is it creates a lot of opportunities for cameras, either in this level or in the production level, which we'll show you in a second. And then I was really interested in this here because this is a mezzanine. But there's gaps in here, and I took some closer pictures. I think I'll show a little later of here. Going, I wonder if I can get a PTZ in there, to shoot it, because it's a really nice centered shot for a safety camera there. So I was looking at that there, but it's a pretty place, and not a lot of hang points. So you just know that you're going to live on what you have on the stage. Here's the stage here. There's kind of a high shot here. It kind of shows you, the layers of the stage here, where the curtain lies here, and then of course you can see these basic rigging that they had for the process. Now, this was the opening band. It's called Crooked Kings, which was good. They were really pretty clean, a relatively clean sounding band. I mean, the mix was very, very good and very crisp. So it was good. They're obviously getting a subset of the lights, so they didn't get all the lights, but it still looks really good with the haze that they mixed Nag Champa incense, like someone was burning it at the same time as the haze. I completely approve of that. Like, it just had this nice smell to it. It didn't have hazy smell. It had a Nag Champa smell, but you felt like, oh my gosh, it's all Nag Champa, but it isn't. It was a haze. So anyway, this is the fully utilized lighting rig for Flip Turn, and you can see we got pretty close, as you can see, but you can see these rigs here. One of the things that I thought was really interesting is they have these movers in the back that were small matrices. So there's a lot of designs that they could do. They actually were doing ones that looked like blocks and look like Tetris. So they'd have little ones, like actually the Tetris blocks showing there, which I thought was a really interesting approach to things. The other thing that they did that I thought was interesting was that these lights here, these are movers, and so these are LED movers that were on the sides, and it really created this cinematic look. I haven't seen a lot of people do this where they're lighting up from the side of it, and I really liked it. It gave it kind of a Greenberg kind of lighting to them, where the highlights on both sides were something that was actually fairly pleasing. They did a lot with these. The only thing I would say is that in some cases they were shining right into our face, and so there was a little bit of a too much. We might want to shoot over our heads. This is. Now, you won't be able to get the full effect of this, but this is the lead singer here, right here, and I was experimenting with 3D. So I shot this in spatial with my phone, so you won't see that, but you'll get to kind of see the look at all these cameras. When are you gonna watch that? You're jumping up and down. Like, you're jumping up and down. Like, I am doing everything I can to be stable, and that's what it looks like. Like, everything I can to be stable. The whole floor is going up and down. It's an old building. I thought we were going to go through the floor.
I was wondering. I was like, so how did you manage with everyone like bumping?
Not having fun without our phone in our hand.
I'm a big guy. I'm a big guy. I got a lot of mass. So anyway, but here you can see these also in this. You can see kind of these, how they were using a lot of these lights. Which was and then they had these here, which I thought was really, really nice.
Maybe DJI will come out with a mosh pit model that has vertical damping.
And then here's your arrays. Here's one of the things that's really nice about the way that these arrays were set up, is that there wasn't a lot of coverage in the center. And the reason I say that that's interesting is because, so I was measuring I was in the high 90s or mid 90s as far as dB in the center here. So I was standing right here, and because these are kind of pointed out, I'm sure that out here on the walls it must have been 105, 110. In the center here, it wasn't as bad. Now, and at first I thought there was a fair bit of muddiness that was going on with the main band. And at first I thought maybe it's the way the speaker arrays are set up, but the first band sounded crisp and clean. And so I don't think that it was I think it was a choice. So the bass was really heavy, and the vocals were kind of pushed into the bed, and I definitely did not agree with that choice. Even my daughter was like, "What happened to the vocals?" But here you can see these arrays hung. So each one of these is a little mover, and it's a little matrix mover. Elation makes one. A couple other folks make them, but they've got either 5x5s or 3x3s, and then man, did they know how to program them. It was really complex. It was a really complex lighting show. This was the lighting cove here, so you can see some of the lights that are here that are there. I don't think the band does anything with those. I think those are theater areas. But this is where I saw a camera opportunity. That I think for a PTZ camera or a lock-off could be really interesting there. Here's
so
a wider.
All the movers were house lights? They were not brought in by the band?
No. This is all band, I think.
All band.
Okay. So this is all band. I'm just saying those little ones that were in this cove here, I don't think that those were. I think those come with the house. Mm-hmm. This I'm sure that this was all brought in by the band. Here you can see this is Allen and Heath, I believe. I think it's a 5000 there, and then you have two Grand MAs that are here that are running that lighting show. But this is what's interesting though, is that again, I really found this whole multi-stage thing from a production perspective. I find that to be very compelling about where I can put cameras and stuff like that, because there's a lot of places to easily put a camera that's over top of everybody's heads without a lot of, especially in this section right here. That's one section down from this from the consoles. I'm not getting in the way of anybody, or almost anybody, and so I don't have as many seat. Well, there's no seats, so there's no seat kills. There's seats upstairs that you pay extra for, which I don't understand. But anyway, so it was a fun show, and that's I thought it'd be fun to, if I go to these shows and there's something interesting about them, to break down what we're looking at.
Absolutely, very cool.
This
What's
weekend,
the house capacity there?
It is 2,800. 2,800, and it was probably pretty close. So it's 2,800. I'm going to guess there was about 2,000 that were there, which I thought was really interesting. I'm not super familiar with Flip Turn. I've been listening to them for a couple of weeks because I knew the concert was coming up, and they're really good. But it wasn't a band that I know well. So I was surprised that there were 2,000. I mean, we got there. I thought we were going to go to dinner. There was a great little hand roll place that Japanese hand rolls, and I thought, we'll go to dinner across the street, and then we'll go to the show casually. And we got there. There was a line for GA, and so we were like, and we'll get in the line. And so it was like an hour and a half before the show. So there were about 2,000 people there. I think the tickets were about $50 each, which gives you gives you probably a cum of 100K, which means the band was probably in that kind of my guess is 50 to 60,000 is probably where that was. That along because the ticket on the plus alcohol and everything else would be a good day for the thing. And so the band could be as much as. What's interesting for me as someone who does production is $100,000 seems like a lot for a concert. That's not like, as a person who does production, I do things that are way simpler than that cost almost as much.
Mm-hmm.
so I was just like, that is an incredible feat to do these at that rate. Anyway,
are they an indie band or do they have a contract?
It's an indie band.
With some?
No,
Okay,
I think that they have a label, but I don't think that they're independent that independent. But I don't.
And
think
the
that
label's probably not tossing tons of money at them trying to build them.
They've been around for a long time, and again, they have big words on their lyrics. That's how we measure. That's how I measure bands. So if you open up Apple Music and the lyrics pop up, and it's big words that go with the song.
With the song, yeah, it's been synced.
A certain level of it's literally there's a certain level where they put the work into it to put those words in. If they're little that don't move, it's a really small song. and I'm like, there'll be songs that I know from my childhood, and they pop up, and I go, really? Like small words? Like, I mean, come on! It was a classic. So but I made decisions about that. Yeah. So
that was fun. Alexander Knight has some questions here.
Yeah, when you were talking about the line array, do you have any better pictures of the front of the stage? Because usually you'll find that I don't know if you have a shot of it. Because usually they will put subs at the front of the stage and they'll put front fill strapped down to the top, so you might not notice them. But there should be something there. I'd be shocked with the width of that stage if they had none.
Well, if he's right about 90 dB where he was, but
you've got some down here, over here. I don't think I should have shot more in the front. I couldn't. I'm not used to getting somewhere an hour and a half ahead of time and not being able to sit right against the stage. So there was a layer of like 3 people between me and the stage, and so between us and the stage, and so I wasn't able to. I didn't get up there. I should have gotten over here and taken more photos or something. But the next step will be to talk to the Fox Theater and see if I can't do a recce there. So anyway, but it's a great. I identified it as a theater that I'd love to shoot in. Like, that's all. Is like if this comes up as an opportunity, it's a great aperture.
Beautiful old golden age houses. They're just so pretty.
It's in good condition.
Liberty had a question.
Yeah, that shot and just the color looks great. I forgot, what did you say you were shooting on, and how did your daughter feel about you being there and working?
I don't appear like I'm working. I just take a bunch of pictures of stuff, and she knows that that's kind of par for the course with me. I'm not sitting there talking to them, and I think we have a good time. It's definitely a fun father and daughter. We go to a concert maybe on average maybe once a month, somewhere, and so and of course Dad pays for all the tickets and the T-shirt and the poster and the and the dinner beforehand. So it's pretty good night out. I don't think she minds, and I get some good photos of her with watching the stuff and stuff that she wouldn't normally take, and I think we have a pretty good time of it. We listen to a lot of music together. Like, we go out once a week, and while we're driving, she's playing stuff for me, I'm playing old stuff for her, she plays new stuff for me, and we kind of cross pollinate constantly. So I think music is kind of a fun thing. Now she is playing concerts herself this weekend down in Santa Cruz. So my son and I are going to see. We're going to go see Matt the Electrician on Friday night, and then the Illegals, which are an Eagles cover band. We're going to go see them Saturday night. So it's more concerts. We'll have more to show next week.
It's a fun look through. Thank you, Alex. Yeah. Let's go to our next question.
Paul Valhus in Austin, Texas asked the panel, my mission-critical Mac M1 Mini with a loaded Satechi base has bit the dust. What's the cheapest M1 or M2 I could replace it with and still have use of the Satechi? Is there a discount computer equivalent for used Macs?
Jason Bache, what do you think?
Let me start by saying this, other than Alex's Synergy Apocalypse, this is the first time I've heard of an M1 completely biting the dust. And I would put blame, if I were to guess, right at the cheap version of OWC's what is this one called? The STX. This is basically just a fancy USB-C hub. And the question I would be asking is, how do I prevent my next M1, M2, or M3 Mini from getting toasted similarly? And my answer is replace the satechi. Now I'll answer your question. Used, reconditioned, yes, you can get Macs. You can get them at Gazelle, and you can get them at, I believe it's called Sell My Mac, recent OWC acquisition.
Courtney Gooden.
Yeah, I was going to suggest going to look for the refurbished on Apple's website because they do sell, but they only give you a 15% discount, and they'd only sell the newer Macs. You won't find the ones that are 3 generations old there as a refurbished or rebox from Apple. There is there are some of the newer Mac Minis. My question is, this is on Amazon. You get about a 12% discount. It's hard to find anyone who discounts the new Mac materials because Apple puts a really tight control over their resale, over their licensed dealers that can't really undercut the Apple Store. My question is, why are you so dead set on replacing it with something? If it's mission critical, why are you replacing it with something that's 3 years old that could fail again? Because buying a used one, you don't know where it's been or how hard it's worked or how hard it's been driven or what problems it may have. Buy a new one. Bite the bullet. Go with an M4. Get over the fact that it's not going to fit perfectly on your top of your satechi, and what it is, you could then just put the M4 on top of the satechi, and then on top of the M4 Mini, which is smaller, then you can put one of these GMK Techs, which has all the ports on it. You don't need a satechi for this, and you have a little pyramid, a cross-platform pyramid that runs Windows Pro and your new M4 Mac Mini, which will future-proof your critical system for a number of years, and you can still use the satechi as a port expander.
Alex Lindsay.
I agree. I agree with Courtney. Get an M4. The satechis are trash. I think that Jason was nicer. I bought 2 of them. I'm not saying it from. I had all kinds of problems with them. Do not use that. I bought 2 of them, and they were constantly problematic. And they had all kinds of problems. And if something killed, I've never seen an M1 go bad. Like, I have so many. Like, it is like, I probably, between the company and myself, there's probably 30 of them floating around, and just, they are rock solid, pieces of machinery. There's no moving parts. That's quiet. I mean, if it's broken, there's something you did to it. So anyway, I think that the satechi is the most likely. It could have been some kind of power issue on the USB-C.
Don't forget, if you have questions you want to get into the show queue, the simplest and easiest way, and I'm going to toss up the QR code on the screen, is to go to askofficehours.global on your web browser. Just type that in anywhere, or you can shoot that little QR code that I stuck up on the screen. But in any case, you want to get to askofficehours.global. That is the quickest and easiest way to put a question into the system. It'll go into the back end, folks. They'll take a look at it, make sure it makes sense and everything is formed well, and then they will put it into the regular show queue, and that can happen in an hour or 2. It's a very quickly process, or if something comes up that's really critical to the discussion, it might even be quicker. So that's askofficehours.global. Next question.
Craig Kadoki in Toronto is asking, will a USB-C iPhone connected to a multi-channel USB audio device output surround from music?
Alexander Knight, can you help out?
No, unfortunately not. iOS devices over USB-C class compliant DACs, they are not able to, if we're talking Atmos, you can't get raw Atmos bitstream data out of there. Now, if you use a USB, if you go into HDMI into an AVR, it supposedly will work, but I've never tested it. The better experience, the better way to do it would get yourself an Apple TV and use an AVR with a proper multi-channel system if that's what you want to do, because your AVR will have a better DAC built into it, and you'll be able to process the Atmos bitstream data properly.
Alex?
Yeah, I haven't tried that, but I will say that if you output, if it's 5.1, if it's not, we don't know if it's Atmos or not, but if it's 5.1, then the channels, I think it should support it. I just captured 8 channels in on my phone from the. I did do some testing with the Voyage USB mic over the weekend, and and it was 8 channels. You just plugs it in, immediately sees the mic, grabs the 8 channels. This was 8. It's a ambisonic mic, and it was 8 little mics, and it was pretty impressive. I don't think I've ever done it with a phone that was that quick and easy.
Next question.
Here's one from Tim Snyder in Louisville, Kentucky. Saturday, Alex said he uses the Micro G2. What lenses would be recommended that allow camera control, zoom, iris, etc.? Currently use the Panasonic lenses with the B&H link.
Alex, what's your thought?
Yeah, the Panasonic lenses are the easiest ones for you to use. I mean, there are potentially some other ones that are much bigger, but when you're starting with the little camera, you probably want to stay with little lenses. And there's a couple different versions of those. But what you are looking for specifically is this iOS. So that's going to tell you can control the zoom as well as the focus from that camera through the switcher. So there's a couple different ones. There's a longer version of that lens. I don't have it right up here. This is the little pancake one that's 14-42, but there's a slightly longer one as well. And those are great to attach. And now you can control them through the switcher. You can zoom in, zoom out. I use them for overhead cameras and close-up cameras all the time.
Thank you for that question. Next question.
This one's from Roscoe Jones in Madison, Indiana. A tip for legacy media on AI. Quote, to broaden licensing, rights holders need new technical methods to control access to their content assets and attribute use, end quote. How might they lock down assets? Should we all look into this?
Alex, what do you think?
Locking down is hard. Like you're going to have a really hard time locking down assets. I think that really the concept of copyright is going to get really complicated as we kind of move forward. The thing that that I've been brought into a couple conversations is really how to use their assets as a way that they provide AI tools. So, so that they have a large library. How do they harvest the library, make it available via their own AI tools, as opposed to trying to stop people from using theirs? It's going to be a pretty complicated problem for them to manage that. And I think they're going to get to a point where I'm not sure how much it matters. Like, I don't know how valuable old assets are going to be in the next decade. Like, it's just going to be really especially as, one thing that people aren't really understanding yet is this lack of the copyright kept on being extended from the mouse, right? So there was the mouse move of the copyright laws. So they were like, it's going to be 70 years, and now it's going to be 80 years, and now it's going to be 93 years. And then Disney fell out of favor with Congress and no longer can protect the mouse, and now the mouse is out. So it's out of copyright. As that deadline moves forward, and many more things lose their copyright protection, it injects huge amounts of high quality content into the system that is not protected by copyright. And it's going to create all kinds of new music that is coming out. New music, new movies. Some of them are, the most popular one seems to be making horror films about Winnie the Pooh or horror films about Mickey Mouse, and those have already come out to take full advantage of the fact that they're not protected. But the old assets are going to have a lot of value in remixing and so on and so forth, and it's one of the big fears inside of the entertainment industry is that as those old assets become unprotected, it suddenly is the wild, wild west on YouTube. People making all kinds of stuff, people making things that are very low budget, and not having to go back to those assets. And when we get to the 50s or 60s, it gets pretty, there's a lot there. And if Congress decided to shorten, the copyright to 40 years, let's say, or 45 years, which some people have talked about, or 50 years, you're talking about shortening everything in past the Beatles. And once that happens, it's just going to be very, very hard for copyright holders to maintain value.
Liberty, your thoughts?
So the way I originally read Roscoe's question was just kind of like, overall copyright. And so my answer would be like, yes, we need to look at this and how to protect it. Because I've heard and seen some things around like your metadata and using blockchain, but then he did specifically say around legacy. So are you saying, Alex, with all of what you shared, that there potentially is not, is it more of a people issue versus creating technology? Because I'm thinking there's some innovation that could take place to help to protect that. But are you saying it's like how we use content?
I just don't know if anyone's going to care about the older stuff that they can't get a hold of, because they can get a hold of so much good older stuff that is totally legal. They're not sure. I'm not clear that older, some of these huge reservoirs of copyright that have made, created a lot of wealth for Hollywood and for many others. I'm just not sure that is going to be as valuable as we keep moving forward. And so I think that's going to be the challenge, is that it's not that it won't be valuable at all, but there is a shelf life now that AI and other things are creating. Now they're going to go in and try to stop AI from doing what they're doing. That's how they're going to try to protect themselves. But if they lose that, it's a very high stakes battle. If they get to the Supreme Court with these lawsuits over AI, and the Supreme Court finds, well, AI is just learning the way a human learns, or a way something learns, and it's not copying bit for bit, which is a very, it's 50-50 which way that this lawsuit's going to go. And the stakes are very high. A lot of people are standing on the sideline waiting to see what happens. If they lose the lawsuit, $1 trillion will enter the market to harvest, using AI and so on and so forth. It's still sitting there waiting. Everyone's being careful. Apple's being careful. That's why a lot of these things don't work as well. And it will suddenly spin very hard. And so that's looming over everybody's head. Potentially, it's a horrible thing for AI, and they have to all restart and relicense and do all kinds of other things. But there's a 50-50 chance that it is the end of many things for people. And I don't know if I would have threatened to do those lawsuits a little longer before I actually did them, because it was keeping everybody at bay, or a lot of people at bay. And there's still a lot of money, even though they're spending a lot of money on AI. It's nowhere near what could be spent if they see an opportunity to utilize learning from copyrighted materials.
It's going to be a weird thing. I just know that at some point in the future, AI is going to do a movie with Mr. Rogers in a slasher film or something like that. And unfortunately, the thing that bothers me is that I'm being a little serious about that. There's a generation that'll get to that before they get to Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And so it will change potentially cultural appreciation of who the man was based on the fact that somebody flipped that persona into a different thing, and a new generation doesn't understand what their grandparents understood about the man. It's a very complicated thing, and it's going to be very difficult for all of us to manage this as we go forward. But it's inevitable. This stuff is coming towards us. Next question.
Paul Valhus in Austin, Texas is asking, the Lundberg show on YouTube is using the new Shure MoveMic 88 Plus. Is this mic up to Pro Media office hour standards?
Ooh, we'll have some opinions about this. Alexander Knight, let's start with you.
I'm not going to speak for everyone. For me, no. I would prefer somebody not come on here with a wireless product that is operating in the 2.4 gigahertz spectrum. It's an okay sounding mic, don't get me wrong, but I think for less money, for what that thing actually sells for less money you can get an MV6, which is a nice dynamic microphone end address. I'd rather have that and get that close to your mouth. You'll probably get a lot better bass response to, and just better detail than a tiny little capsule, small diaphragm.
Courtney, your thoughts?
Yeah, I looked at this video, and the guy that is using it, and he's using it, he's not using it wirelessly. If you look at the picture here, he's got it in front. It's a little hard to see in front of his black shirt there, but he's got it plugged into USB, so he's using the USB interface for it, not the wireless. The problem with this new one, we heard it. Laura came on and demonstrated it, and I think it sounded okay. It has a lot of features that could be, misused or ignored, and because it has switchable patterns. I think it uses electret condenser capsules inside of it to achieve mid-side. It could be in mid-side mode or stereo mode, which is 60 degrees, which would mean he's in the middle of the null of the stereo mode if it's in the wrong mode, or it has bidirectional figure 8 mode. And I think if you're doing a regular podcast like this guy does, and he's doing demonstrations, he's using some type of switcher. Obviously, he's got little logos in the corner, and he later goes to demonstrations of software where he drops into, he's using vMix or something like that, or OBS, to produce this show. He's probably needing to use a high-level mixer rather than mixing on his computer with that USB input. So I would say he'd be better off just to get one of the other Shures that is the dynamic type and run it into a good mixer for about the same price as this one, and not be confused and have it in the wrong mode and all of the other problems that you can run into with this new fancy one.
Alex?
And Mickey said that he doesn't think it's the same mic. He thinks that the show shows an MV88, not the MoveMic 88. So they're slightly different, but yeah, it does look like USB-C. What I think is interesting is a mic that is potentially a little bit smaller than, and I think it is, if it's like all the other Shure mics, is that it could be a set and forget. So if someone doesn't have all the software, they can't really change a lot of the things. And in a lot of cases, we're starting to send out whole computers so we can control it if we needed to. So that's another thing to kind of think about there. But I think it's a really interesting mic. I'd have to test it myself to know.
Yeah, and Paul popped into the chat and said, okay, it's an MV88 Plus. I stand corrected. So we may be thinking about MV88 as opposed to MoveMic 88. Let's take a look at the next question.
Next one's from Kjetil Fla-Jursvold in Tromsø. We have a meeting with an event planner we work closely with that love physical conferences. We always try to push fully digital solutions. How can we get this event planner on board without stepping on any toes?
And Nigel's going to help you out here. Nigel DeSalle.
Yes, this may be a case of where incentives are not aligned. If the way that this company's business model works is to put on events, then they're going to really struggle not putting on events because their business model really doesn't work any other way. And that's, classic innovator's dilemma. If I've always done it this way, that's where I'm going to do it. You could start to explore some other ideas, maybe hybrid, maybe run some tests, maybe parallel. You can try lots of different things, but if the incentives of the organization are not aligned, it's going to be very hard to get somebody to do something different without a significant change of direction in the business.
Alex?
There's a couple of things that we do bring up, or some things to think about. The first one is this: 99.999. The 5 nines. That is the addressable market they're giving up every time they do a physical event only. So that is, you're losing that much of your market because no matter how big your event is, if it's a Super Bowl, you're not going to get more of the world's audience than that. So that's the first thing to kind of keep in mind in that process. But you can still have a great physical event without any digital impact at all if you want to. And the way that we're starting to recommend and talk to folks about this is really thinking about tracks, and the fact that tracks are not the mistake people make is that they think that people come for the content and they don't. They come to see each other. In fact, you're doing the event so that people come and see each other and talk to each other and everything else. But then you have all this content you want to talk about and you don't need to talk about it all. Tracks create all kinds of FOMO and it makes everybody rattled and busy and everything else. You don't really need the tracks. You do need to cover all that content to do that digitally. For the 3 months before or the 3 months after, just do an event once a week, twice a week, every night, whatever you want that is covering all of that content. Then look at TED, which is probably the gold standard for people interacting with each other, and watch how they slow the process down. They have 2 or 3 hours, or 1 to 2 hours of presentations, and then they have an hour and a half break. Then they have 1.5 to 2 hours of presentation. Then they have a 2-hour lunch. Then they give the huge, because they understand what's important. They didn't come for the content. They came to talk to each other. And a singular plenary allows everybody to have the same context to talk to each other. So you take the most important questions, the most thought-provoking in your industry, and you put everybody in the same room or in the same breakout, same whatever, so that now they can walk up to anybody and say, what did you think of the last person? What did you think? Like we would, when I was in TED Africa, you'd walk up and say, what did you think of Jane Goodall? She had some really good points, and and then you had an icebreaker because everyone saw the same thing. And it allows people to, and then you create big breaks, but you can't slow that down unless you figure out where else that content's going to go. And where that content can go is to digital, fully digital, just before or after the show. You're not even trying to do it. And in the show, you can decide whether you stream it, whether you incorporate people, whether you do a hybrid. That's all up, that's all up to them. But the point is it makes that show way more civilized than what we do right now. So we just have to keep on remembering that the reason we did these events the way we do them now is because 20 years ago, we didn't have HD cameras. And so it was SD. It was, like 20 years ago, we weren't using HD cameras in production. We had them, but they weren't used. They were expensive. They were not very good. They were all these other things. And so I think that is but staying connected, but this allows them to stay connected over very long periods of time with their audience connected around the product. But I think that's going to be something that, at least we're talking to folks about. We haven't, we're looking at doing some of these ourselves that way. So we'll see how that goes later in the year.
If you value what we do here, there are a few ways you can help. You can like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That will always help. If you'd like to donate, you can do that at officehours.global/donate. And you can volunteer at officehours.global/volunteer and become part of the team that makes everything we do here possible. So those are some ways you can get more involved in the show. Let's go to our next question.
Douglas Carmichael is asking, it's interesting that they had two MA3s at front of house. How would you arbitrate which of the consoles is talking to which fixtures? I'm not a lighting person, but isn't DMX a static network where one device talks and the rest of the devices listen?
Alexander Knight, your thoughts?
So a lot of DMX interfaces will have what's called a DMX universe, and one DMX universe is limited to 512 channels. Now, of course, each channel there, you can have up from 0 to 255 in terms of color value. So you may want more than one DMX universe, which is in this specific example. They may have a lot of lights with a lot of DMX channels, and they may need to break that up. Now, keep in mind, a lot of lighting fixtures, right? They have various DMX modes. So they may have a 9-channel mode, a 16-channel mode, a 13-channel. So you can imagine how quickly the addresses actually add up. If you have, say, 200 fixtures, 300 fixtures, and they're each 32 channels each, and you want to address every single channel through your DMX controller, that is a lot. So you may need more than one DMX universe.
Courtney?
Yes. And you can also divide it up. A lot of these shows these days have a lot of background lighting or lighting that are used as just props in the background. They aren't necessarily providing the lighting, but they're providing an animated background for the people on the stage. And that way they could divide up the console for the background lighting that is just, flashing along or following the song or being used just as a set piece. And then the foreground lighting that is actually lighting the talent on the stage could be on the other console, because you don't want to get those mixed up and have suddenly the lights flashing on people's faces. And typically DMX 512 is unidirectional communications, but there is an overlay or an additional thing called RDM, which is remote device management, which is an add-on to the regular DMX 512 protocol that allows you to control moving lights that can report their status back and can do a lot of other bi-directional communication. So maybe they're using RDM on one of the constellations and just regular DMX 512 on the others. If they have a lot of moving lights, they might want to keep the console with the RDM on it to control all the moving lights, and then the other one just for static lights.
Alex?
Yeah, you can put quite a few. A Grand MA, you can put quite a few universes onto it that they're all part of it. So that's definitely something that wouldn't be a limitation for the console itself. If the two guesses that I have is that if we look at this here, is that my guess is that either it was just for the opening act is the first one, or these lights and these lights were run by one person and these lights were run by another one. The use of this was so complex that I was like, I don't know, like, and it was responsive. Like, they're doing things with it. It's not, it was probably two people thinking about what they needed to do. It wasn't just like it didn't feel programmed. It felt like they were doing what they needed to do when they needed to do it. There was so much going on. I wouldn't be surprised if they separated those backlights out. They were not just regular little lights. They were matrices they were programming. So when you see, there's, I think 6 of them or whatever, that's 24 fixtures, and each fixture was 3x3, and they were addressing each one of those lights individually. So that was an enormous, number of, just the back area was probably, my guess is, 6 to 8 universes by itself, just that back area. So I think that might have been part of the process.
The chat's fun on this. CJ Covell in the chat said, I've been on shows where we had a second just for redundancy. And Tim McCullough said, yeah, the Department of Redundancy department. We'll see you now. So there's a lot of chatting. Next question.
From Andre Dole in Berlin, how are you planning the exact space you need for all the gear at front of house? With hybrid events, you need so much more gear compared to on-prem events. I started to use Keynote and map out images of the devices to have an exact idea.
Alex Lindsay, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I use every single device, but usually the stuff I bring in are on racks. They're either in racks that we stack, these little floating racks, or they're racks that we roll in. And so in either case, in general, we're figuring out where the racks go, where the tables go, where the seats go, and so on and so forth. In those cases, I have, I typically have using OmniGraffle. I'm using, my major grid is set to 1 foot. My minor grid is set to 1 inch. And I lay out exactly what I need. I provide myself with 36 inches on the back of every table, so that I have room to move around in there. I put my tables in. I put my racks in. I don't create L's. So some people put tables in L's, but you have to remember that you're canceling out a bunch of seats right in the inside of that L. So I don't do L's. I do rows, and then we figure out where all those things need to go. I lay all that stuff out. I'm pretty conservative about this is how much room I need, and then I'll force somebody to to corner me in, rather than, I won't go, there's not much room for me. I'll say, this is how much room I need to do my job, and about 80% of the time I get what I asked for, usually because I respond very, very quickly to this is what I need. And so I get in first. People carve out the 30x30 or 30x20 or whatever it is that I need. And then everyone else kind of works around it. But being very responsive and very quick about these layouts oftentimes gets you to the front of the line. And then you can start to do horse trading at some point where someone needs, CT needs another 5 feet or whatever. And then you figure out how to squeeze into that.
Jason Beish?
So what I'm going to suggest is certainly complementary to that. Friend of the show, John Barker, has H2R gear. And I know that this is not exactly about space, but this is the, kind of working backwards to work into the space. Means you need to know how much stuff you're going to need to bring, and also how that stuff is going to connect and how much cabling you need. So that the two are they work very well together.
Next question.
Todd Raines in Allen, Texas is asking the panel, how would you build a single Keynote slide that shows the current and running time with day and date and possibly the current weather? This will be on a special monitor in my office setup. The built-in macOS widgets are too small.
Jason Beish, what do you think?
Let me start by saying I adore Keynote, and I will push it to do absolutely everything that I think it does well. You're working too hard if you want to use Keynote. Bring the Dashmaster 2K in there. These are completely modular panels. They can be used and incorporated and reincorporated and split into these incredibly elaborate grids. They can be full screened. This is an inexpensive solution. If you want something free, the other way to do it is, have you ever seen the McDonald's menu? Well, I believe it's these guys, posterbooking.com. This will take an Amazon the Amazon stick, the cheapest one that they can possibly get, plug it into a TV, and you can program it and address it via the web. And I believe you can get 10 signs or something for absolutely no money.
Alex?
I was just going to say what Jason said. Dashmaster is the way to go. And Keenan Cannibal uses it for his disaster panels, and it's super powerful.
I think I was about to end there, but I think we have time to sneak in one more. Let's get one more question in.
Aaron Cody in St. Louis, Missouri asks, provided local crew for an out-of-town production company. Some of their gear went missing overnight. Their PM immediately accused us, requested to search our bags, and fired those who didn't consent. How could I better protect my crew in the future?
Oh, that's an ugly situation, Aaron. Alex, do you have some suggestions for him?
Yeah, it's a pretty crazy one. But you do have to be careful of security cameras. So just cameras, it's not just it's there to protect you as well, to show that. So we, in a lot of events, especially in spaces where we think that there could be a problem and things could walk away, we hide a lot of cameras. So we use a lot of we've used Nests in the past and a lot of other ones. And so we have, what's nice about those is we give them their own power. We nestle them into places where they can see each other. So if you see one and you take it out, well, we saw that too. And we put a lot of them in we built kind of, if we have $1 million of equipment sitting down there or something like that, we'll have 9 to 12 cameras that are streaming out from it with their own modems, and that's just a cost of production for us. And so think about cameras that are on the internet, that are on a modem to make that actually happen, and just squeeze that cost somewhere into the process.
Hopefully that helped, Aaron. Thank you all for paying attention to our show today. We hope we were able to do something that helped you solve your problems. The three major constituencies that bring this show together, we cannot do this without all three of them. You, the producers who have asked the questions in here, because our show is entirely driven by your questions. So thank you. Great questions today. As always, you always extremely impress me and I think everybody else on the show with the depth of your interest in what we do. The panelists who come in to answer questions, we have an amazing brain trust that's grown over the almost 5 years now that we've been doing office hours. And our incredible back-end crew, the people who are unsung heroes. You will see many of the names as the credits roll at the end if you can stick around a little to acknowledge them. But even if you don't see their names, there's an entire village that works on this show every day, and we really appreciate the work that they do. Our Talk Traversal today, we traveled 36,000 miles. That's 57,000 kilometers, or 283 million bananas for scale. We'll see you tomorrow.
Jason, was that a real banana?
No, this is a prop banana, but don't ever try to slice it and put it on your cereal because there are carcinogens abound.
No potassium in the plastic.
It's the imperial banana. We use it to measure the official banana length.
Copy that.
Yep.
Do we have a metric one as well?
We do. No. It's actually exactly the same. They are a 1-to-1 ratio.
Yeah, but they're only good south of the equator, I understand, so it doesn't.
A metric banana is a plantain.
Plantain. Not plantain.
On a metric day, take it 24 hours and divide it by 10.
Something.
Bye, y'all. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, back end.
Bye-bye.